All right, folks, so what we have here is the CaHRTenna Ares. It is a random wire antenna, and it uses a 9-to-1 on. In this video, we're going to build it, so you'll see how to do that. Now, what I want to mention is that because it's a random wire antenna, use an antenna element, here's our orange one, that's not resonant on any ham band. So we chose a 41-foot element and a 17-foot counterpoise. And this antenna should work with a tuner just fine on any band from 40 meters all the way to 6 meters. Now, I did build this for a buddy of mine, so I'm going to be sending it out to him. He asked me nicely, and he's a good buddy of mine, so I put it together for him. I'm not going to build these for everybody. So that's kind of where we are. If you're interested in one, there'll be a link to the Coffee and Ham Radio site below where you can pick one of these up. And you can use this video and the instructions that come with it to put it together yourself. So there we go. Stay tuned, and let's enjoy the build together. All right, let's see what's shipped in the box. And we've got a bag of parts. We'll take a look at that. And then we have the frame with our wire. And a Velcro strap to hold everything in place. Some bubble wrap. We have our T140 Mix 43 toroid. We have some shrink wrap for the final product. We have some solid core copper wire for wrapping our toroid. Couple of zip ties to hold everything in place, B&C connector for our coaxial cable, and then we have some lugs here, and these are for our counterpoise and our antenna element, and maybe this is an extra one or two. I don't know what those are for. We'll have to look at the instructions. And then we have a little bit of heat shrink, and everybody loves heat shrink. All right, well, let's get this party started. We are going to start by winding the toroid. Okay, so here are the build instructions, and we're going to take a quick look at these. The first thing is the packing list. And we have everything that's on this packing list, but because it's me, they didn't send me a sticker. I'm going to have to talk to Chuck about that. Scrolling down, here's some stuff about the winder, and you can put these posts in the B&C connector, and we're going to do that in a minute. But I wanted to pay a little bit of attention here to this infographic that shows the winding for the toroid, the 9-to-1 unknown that we're going to put together. And I want to pay some special attention to the color orientation here, because when I do all of my connections, I want to make sure they're right. So here we have, for the first winding, we have red, black, and blue. So we're going to orient ours the same way. Then we're going to do 9 windings. So let's go ahead and get that started, and then we'll come back here and we'll prepare the frame. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take this toroid, and well, the first thing I did actually was I marked it. So in case I ever take this apart or use this toroid for something else, it's always a good idea to mark the value of the toroid on the toroid. And what I'm going to do is put the zip tie through here, and I'm going to start to cinch it up. Now, we didn't go all the way, and so what I want to do is I'm just going to put that there for safekeeping, is I'm going to take my wire, and then I'm going to unwrap it a little bit. Or maybe a lot of it. There we go. So this is all straightened out. And we talked about the orientation, and so what we want is red on the top, then black, and then blue. So our wire should look like this. And I'm going to take about 4 or 5 inches, whatever it says in the instructions. Don't listen to me. And then I'm going to come up through the bottom of the toroid. And then I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to push these out. And so we still have our red, black, and blue. And then I'm going to get those out to about here. And then I'm just going to bend this over. And I'm going to pull these down and get a snug connection there. And then I'm going to tighten that up as tight as I can get it. And then we're going to come back and snip that off. So what I want to do, I don't have any snips sitting right here. All right, I found some snips. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to snip this off so it doesn't get in my way. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these wires and then I'm going to pull them around, and I'm going to make sure that I don't change my orientation any. And I'm going to pull them up And I'll make sure that this is as tight as I can get it. And then what I do is I take my thumb and I push this through. It makes it a little bit easier, and I'm less worried about the kinks in it. I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to pull that through. This is normally a little bit easier to do because I hold it close to me. I got to hold it way out because of the camera. And so what we actually have here are 2 wraps, 1, 2. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to do this 9 times. Okay, so now our toroid is wrapped. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 windings, and our orientation has maintained its correct position. So this toroid's done. Now what we need to do is we need to do some various connections here, but let's go ahead and get our frame ready first. Okay, so here's our nylon frame, and I went ahead and I put the bolts and nuts on the frame. You shouldn't need me to show you how to do that. It was nice and easy. I'm going to use this one for the antenna element connection, and this one is going to be used for our counterpoise connection. So the next thing we do is we take our B and C adapter, and I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to unscrew this, set that there, and then I'm going to take off. We have a couple of parts here. We have a washer, and then this is for connecting our shield connection. And what I want to do is I want to take this, and if you notice, it has some flat spots on it. See, one's there and one's there. Now the frame's been designed to account for that. You should be able to see right there the flat spots on that circle. So I just want to go ahead and I want to put that in. And there we go. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put the washer on. If I can pick it up. And then I'm going to take our shield connector here, and I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to put that on. And then I'm going to take this nut, and then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to tighten that. There's a couple of different ways that you can tighten that nut. An easy way to do it is with a socket on a screwdriver. Okay, we have the nut on there, and I had some trouble because of my buttery fingers, but now I'm getting this nice and tight. And then once that's finger tight, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take our shield connector and I'm just going to slide it out a little bit so it'll be easy for me to access. And then I'm just going to use a pair of pliers to go ahead and tighten the nut up all the way. All right, when you put this on, you do want to be as careful as you can to make sure that you have access to the cup of this. So when we go and we connect our toroid up, we're going to slide the wire in the hole of this to make sure we get a good solder connection when it's time to do that. But now our frame's prepared, and then we're going to finish the business of the toroid, and then we're going to go ahead and we're going to get that mounted on there. Okay, so there's one thing I wanted to point out or discuss with this toroid, and I talk about the importance of paying attention to what you're doing and then checking and verifying when you're done. And if you take a look at this toroid, one of the things you'll see is that we have blue, black, and then red, right? So if we take a look at the windings, it goes blue, black, red. Same thing all the way till we get to here. And then the black is on the outside. So at the end of it, we have black, blue, red instead of blue, black, red. And that's a little bit of a problem. And what I could do is I could unwind all of this and I could back to here and then correct it. So you can see right here between the two where they got switched. So we had a crossover right there and I wasn't paying attention and I wound it. But a good thing I caught it when I checked it. But I don't feel like unwinding all that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this toroid from our personal stash for this antenna. I'm actually building this antenna for a buddy of mine, and we're just going to go ahead and we're going to use this one, and you can see our orientation is correct throughout. So we're going to proceed with this toroid, not this one because I'm a big old dummy and I messed it up. Okay, so when we look at the instructions, one of the first things that we see is that making sure our orientation is correct. On the bottom set of windings, this red one is the antenna, so that's going to connect to our ground lug for the radiating element. And the next one that we need to be concerned about is this blue one on top. Yours will be blue, mine's green, and that is going to go to the ground here on the PNC connector, and then we're going to fork it, and that's going to go to our counterpoise lug. So that's easy enough. So the next thing that we got to take a look at is right here, this black on the bottom. And that should be in the center, and we're going to connect that to the red on the top. So that's going to be the first thing that we're going to do when we do the configuration of the toroid. So let me go ahead and turn this window capture off, and we'll just take a quick look. So this red is our antenna. We're not going to do anything with that. This green is going to be to our counterpoise and to our ground. And then what we need to do is we need to take this black from the bottom. So we're going to pull it up over, and then we're going to connect that to the upper red. So we're going to connect these two. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually snip this. So let me grab my snips and we'll come right back. Okay, we're zoomed in and we got the snips. So we want to take our black and we're going to measure that. And we're going to cut it at about halfway across. Actually, let's do it all the way across the toroid. So let me get my snips. And we cut that one. And now we should always double check everything, but we're going to connect this one to the red. So I'm going to do the same thing and I'm going to cut the red. And now what we need to do is we need to strip this insulation off, and then we need to solder these 2 points together. So let me just kind of get this stuff out of the way. So I'm just going to use these wire snips, and this is 18 gauge wire. So hopefully I can see where the 18 gauge mark is on here. And let me just go over here. And that's about what I want. So now I'm going to get my soldering gun out, and we're going to come back and we're going to solder that. Okay, so our soldering iron is heated up. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to tin the tip just a little bit because they say that that's what you're supposed to do. And I'm going to come down here and I'm going to hold it. And I can't see anything I'm doing. But I think I got it. So let me just take a quick peek at this. And I'm going to put just a little bit more on there. But I think we're good. Now there looks to be, it's just a mark on the toroid. I was going to say it looked like a little bit of wire was missing there or sticking out, but we're good. Now sometimes people will try to get a piece of heat shrink on here. You can do that. It's not necessary. We're just going to leave it like that. So let's take a look at the next step in preparing this particular toroid. Okay, so here we are with the toroid soldered, and the next thing that we need to do is that we need to take the green from the bottom and we need to connect that to the black. And then this black is going to connect to our center conductor. So let me go ahead and pull up the picture. And that should be right here. And so you can see in our picture, the bottom one is blue. So we're going to take that. We're going to connect it to the black at the top. And then we're going to use that to connect to our center conductor, which should be easy enough. So let me show you how we're going to do this. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm kind of going to measure this, and we're going to snip it. Well, we're going to take the green and we're going to bend it up right about there. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to snip it right here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to strip off a little bit of this green. All right. See how we have that bent up right there? And I'll show you why in a second. So let me go ahead and take the black and do the same thing. We're going to bend it up. And then I want to measure where this is stripped because I want to strip the black in the center just a little bit. And I don't need all this black, so what we're going to do is we're just going to cut it right about here. And that's going to make our job a little easier. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down here. And we're just going to go ahead and we're going to pull it up a little bit. So you can see right here where we started to slide that. I'm just going to slide it up just enough that I can make a connection. Okay, so hopefully everybody can see that. And so I just have these two wires right next to each other. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to solder these together. So when we take a look at this, this is going to be our antenna. This is going to go to our center conductor. And then this is going to be our ground and counterpoise. So let me just get that sitting there. Iron is hot. We don't have our glasses on. And let's get some on the back side there too. Okay, so now that that solder connection is done, it's a little hot still. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take the heat shrink that came with this, and I'm going to cut a little piece of this. Not much, just a little bit. And what I don't want to have happen is a short between this solder connection and this solder connection. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to slide the heat shrink over top of this. And then I'm going to go use my heat gun, which is in the other room, and I'll come back when that's done. But here we are. We have our antenna connection, we have our ground and counterpoise connection, and then we have our center conductor. And then we'll get this affixed to the frame when I come back. Okay, so what we did is we took our toroid, we applied the heat shrink, and then we trimmed this center conductor piece, and then we kind of scooched it into this cup holder on the BNC connector, and then I zip tied it down to the frame. So our green is going to come through the hole down on the center conductor piece here, and then we're going to bridge it over to our counterpoise connection, so that way we can connect our counterpoise. This red is our antenna, so what we're going to actually do is we're going to feed it up through here so it's nice and secure. We're going to bring it up, and then we're going to trim it off, and then we're going to connect it to our antenna port. But the first thing I want to do is I want to solder this connection here for the center conductor. So let me turn everything on and we'll be right back. Okay, let's get some solder on the tip. Go on and put that on the center conductor. And that should be good. I'm going to take a quick look at it. I'm going to come around on this side, and I think I'm going to put a little bit more solder on this side. And now we should be good to go. So one thing I wanted to mention is I used larger zip ties that I had in stock that came with the frame. And I did that because I went all the way around the frame. You can run your zip ties through the center hole and then this top and bottom hole if you want. The shorter zip ties should work fine. I just used these because it was sitting on the table and it was laying in front of me, and so that's what I did. Now what I want to do is I want to take my antenna portion and I'm going to connect it to this lug. So what I need to do is I need to take this, and then I need to strip just a little bit of this insulation off. So we're going to go to about here, and then we're just going to work it off. All right, so there's our insulation removed. You can see that right there. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take one of these lugs and I'm just going to slide it on there. And you can see my wires poking through the top just a little bit. So I'm going to hold this in place right about there. And then I'm going to get my crimps, and I'm just going to line all this up. I want to hold this very steady because I don't want that wire to pull out. And looks like we have a pretty good connection there. Now what I'm going to do is just hit this with a little bit of solder. If you have a good solid connection on there, it's kind of overkill and not really necessary, but we're going to do it anyway. Okay, the iron's hot, and I did put this back in the crimper and crimp it up just a little bit more. But let's go ahead and bend that up. Let's take our iron, tin the tip a little bit. I don't need anybody commenting on my dirty tip. And then I'm just going to go ahead, I'm going to put this on here, and I'm just going to put some solder in there. All right, there we go. Now what I want to do is I want to connect it to this lug right here. Okay, so now we have this crimped down, lugged down, soldered, and all that stuff. So what we want to do now is we want to do our ground and counterpoise connection. So we're going to take our green wire, which is a little bit longer than what we need. So I'm going to come around here, give or take, and I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to cut that. And then what I'm going to do now is I'm going to strip the wire back pretty far, probably about 1.25 inches. Now, one of the things I'm going to mention is that when you build this kit, this is a kit, and we design these kits for you to build the way that you see fit and use our instructions as guidelines. You can take some liberties as long as the fundamentals are the same and make your kit differently should you choose to do that. It's all part of learning and growing. If you have a problem, you can still contact us and we'll help you out. So yeah, let me go ahead and strip this and we'll move on to the next step. All right, so what I'm doing now, slowly but firmly, I've scored the insulation, and now I'm just going to use my thumb to pull this off. And there we go. Now, the reason I do this, and you don't have to, you can do it differently if you want, is it's going to make it easier for me to feed through and solder to this post, which gets my center conductor, my shield, and then I can just slide this down, and then I can crimp a terminal lug on here and just attach it to my counterpoise bolt. And that makes that pretty easy to do, and it's nice and clean, and I don't need to fork any wires. Maybe you're into forking wires. I don't know. I don't fork them. All right, so anyhow, let me solder this piece on, and we'll be right back. Okay, so we have everything done. Let's take a quick look at it. Antenna connection, I think we covered that. It comes up through here. This is our center conductor. It's connected to the center conductor of our BNC. And then we had stripped this wire. Let me hold it up here, and then you can see we have it down. And I took the insulation off of the terminal lug just to get a little bit of a tighter fit down here, and we have it all soldered into place, so that should be good. The next thing we're going to do is we are going to cut and attach our counterpoise. Now, we start at a 17-foot counterpoise. So that is going to get connected down here, and we'll take a look at that when it's on. And we just wrap it around the antenna like you would when you pack it up. And then we're going to connect the antenna itself. And I believe we're looking at around 41 feet. So let me go ahead and get that part done, and we'll be right back. So what I did is I measured 17.5 feet, and I have 6 inches of the wire folded back. And that's in case they need to do any adjustments on this. And then I put this dog bone, I think is what they call this, a dog bone insulator on the end of it. They don't come with these. So this is an extra, like the upgraded wire that I put on here that my buddy's going to get. And what he would do is if he wanted to attach this anywhere, he could put a piece of string through this side and loop it somewhere if he wanted to, or do whatever he wants to do. He could take the dog bone off. I don't care. But that's this end. And then we need to take the other end of the wire. Let me get to that. And then what we're going to do for the sake of some strain relief is we're just going to feed it up through the bottom part of this hole. We're going to connect one of these terminal lugs to the end of it, and then we're going to put it on to this connector here. Okay, so what we did is we attached our counterpoise, and then you can see under here the lug is attached, and it's all fine. Now I have this on here, and I mentioned this adds some bulk and it adds some heft to this for portability's sake, but it makes it a lot easier sometimes to mount, just depending upon how you're doing it. So I'll leave that on there, and it'll be their decision. Let me go ahead and cut the element and get that taken care of, get it attached, and then we also need to apply the heat shrink to this thing. Okay, so what we have here is another dog bone, and again, I folded it over 6 inches in case any adjustments need to be made. Now at this point you might say, Ape, why are you using 2 different color wires? The kit only comes with 1 color of wire, so you're a little bit limited there. But because I'm doing a custom build for my buddy, I did 2 different color wires because sometimes people get them mixed up when they're deploying. This way you always know that the gray is for your ground or counterpoise, and then the orange is for your element, and that will reduce a little bit of potential error. Okay, so let's take a look at where we are. What we have on the design for this is we have a tiny hole at the top for stress or strain relief, and we feed the wire in there and then come up and then through the bottom, and we can just cinch this up or tighten it up. It comes up through the bottom right here and then comes on the top again, and then we just attached and soldered our lug, and then we mounted it to our antenna post. So this is done. This is good. I'm going to wrap it up. We're going to take another quick look at it, and then we're probably going to call that it. Okay, so this antenna is just about done. Here's a piece of heat shrink that we need to put on, and you'll see that at the beginning of the video when I show what the video is all about. But we're done. I mentioned about the two different colors. We have the upgraded wire here because I messed up. I was going to just send regular wire. But we're all connected. Now, one of the things I would caution against is that don't hook this up, mount it, and then hook it to an antenna analyzer, because your SWR is going to be off on certain bands, and that's because it is a random wire antenna. It's not resonant on any of the ham bands. Now, it might be close on 40 or maybe 20, but I think it's closer on 40. But what you do is you use a tuner with this particular antenna, so it's not going to be resonant. It's not going to be a flat or a one-to-one when you look at it on your antenna analyzer. But that's going to wrap it up. If you have any questions, comments, suggestions, or recommendations, go ahead and post them below, and I'll do my best to respond. Thank you.